They said a gift that great never dies. It just waits for silence to be heard again. The words would only make sense weeks later, when everything lay broken and rebuilt. But on that quiet morning, Amara simply wiped dust from the grand piano she wasn't allowed to touch. The marble floors gleamed like frozen rivers beneath her bare feet. Outside, sunlight spilled through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting gold streaks across the mansion's endless hallways. To her, the house was a cathedral of silence, a place where people spoke softly but judged loudly. Amara had worked here for 7 months. The billionaire, Leonard Voss, rarely noticed her. When he did, it was only to correct her posture, her tone, or the way she folded napkins as though they were stock reports. He was a man sculpted from control. Sharp suit, colder eyes. Everything about him was deliberate, except the piano. That piano. It sat in the corner of his glass-walled music room, untouched, perfectly polished. Like a shrine no one dared disturb. Amara had always wondered why. She wasn't supposed to linger there, but music had always been her refuge. Back in her childhood, in a crowded orphanage in New Orleans, she used to hum symphonies she didn't even know the names of. Notes came to her like whispers in another language. She'd tap rhythms on tin plates until the nuns scolded her. But here, in this mansion of money and marble, even her humming felt out of place. Still, sometimes, when the other staff were gone, she'd pause in the music room. Her reflection stared back from the piano's glossy surface. She'd hover her hand an inch above the keys, never daring to touch, until a sound behind her made her retreat. On this particular morning, she was polishing silver when Mr. Hale, the butler, entered with his usual calm grace. "Mr. Voss will be hosting investors this evening," he said. "Make sure the main hall is spotless. And Amara." "Yes, sir?" He hesitated. "Avoid the music room after hours. He's sensitive about it." Amara nodded. She'd heard the same warning before, but something in the butler's tone today was different. Not stern, but almost protective. That afternoon, the mansion came alive. Guests arrived in sleek cars that gleamed like liquid mirrors. Their laughter filled the air, a language of power and performance. Amara moved silently among them, serving drinks, collecting glasses, invisible as always. Leonard Voss stood near the piano, surrounded by men in tailored suits. His confidence radiated like a stage light. Yet when someone asked about the piano, "Do you still play, Leonard?" his smile faltered. "Not anymore," he said softly. "Some things are better left in silence." The conversation shifted, but Amara caught something in his eyes. Pain, not arrogance. She didn't understand it yet, but she felt it. The kind of pain that doesn't fade, just hides behind manners. Later, as the night deepened, she returned to the now empty music room. The guests had gone. Only faint echoes of laughter lingered like ghosts in the walls. The piano gleamed under moonlight. She stood there for a long time, listening to the silence. Then, with a slow breath, she lifted the cover. Her fingertips brushed a single key. The note was soft, clear, like glass cracking under ice. Then another, and another. Her hands moved instinctively, as if memory itself guided her. She didn't know how she knew the song, but the melody flowed through her like a river breaking free from a dam. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Her eyes closed as emotion filled her. Not pride, not rebellion, but peace. When she finished, The air felt charged. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot the warnings, forgot who owned the piano. She just stood there, trembling, smiling through quiet tears. And then a slow clap echoed from the shadows. She froze. Leonard Voss stepped into the light, his expression unreadable. "Well," he said, voice low and measured. "Didn't know we hired musicians now," Amara stammered. I'm sorry, sir. You just what?" His tone cut like ice. "Decided the rules didn't apply to you." Her heart raced. "I didn't mean disrespect, Mr. Voss. I heard the piano and thought you'd play Beethoven? Blindfolded, perhaps?" His words were mocking, but his eyes weren't cruel. They were searching. She couldn't tell why, but he looked almost afraid. "I'll clean it," she whispered. "I'll never touch it again." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You shouldn't have been able to play that." Amara blinked. "What?" "That piece. Those transitions. Most trained pianists can't manage that flow." He studied her like she was a problem to solve. "Who taught you?" "No one," she said quietly. "I just remember sounds." His jaw tightened. "Remember?" She nodded, confused. "Sometimes, when I hear a melody once, I can play it again. It's just something I've always done." Leonard exhaled sharply, a sound between disbelief and recognition. He turned away, muttering something she couldn't hear. Then, louder, "Stay out of this room, Amara, for your own sake." He walked off before she could answer. The door slammed shut behind him. Her hands still trembled. She didn't understand what had just happened. Only that she'd seen something in his face that didn't fit the man's reputation. Fear. Not of her breaking rules, but of what she was. As she turned to leave, a faint reflection caught her eye. Something under the piano bench. She knelt and found a small folded piece of paper wedged between the wood. It was an old photograph, sepia-tinted with time. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, sitting at a piano, smiling shyly at the camera. The initials AD scribbled on the corner. Her initials, but she had no memory of ever being photographed at a piano. Amara stood there in silence, heart pounding. The room suddenly felt colder. From somewhere beyond the hall, a floorboard creaked. Someone was still there. She tucked the photo into her apron pocket and slowly backed away from the piano. Outside, thunder rumbled across the horizon. The calm before the storm had just ended. She witnesses something she wasn't meant to see, but doesn't yet understand its meaning. Kindness can be dangerous in houses built on secrets. Morning came heavy with silence. The storm had passed, but the mansion felt bruised by it. Windows streaked, air thick, halls echoing like hollow cathedrals. Amara worked quietly, pretending nothing had happened the night before. Her body moved on autopilot. Scrub, rinse, polish. But her thoughts were a storm of their own. The photograph in her apron pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Leonard Voss's face. The flash of shock when she said she could remember sounds. She needed to know why that startled him. As she carried breakfast to the East Wing, she passed the music room. The door was locked now, a gleaming brass lock that hadn't been there yesterday. He did that overnight. Her chest tightened. Not with guilt this time, but curiosity. By late morning, Mrs. Evelyn Voss had descended from her private suite, leaning gently on a cane. Despite her frailty, there was still grace in her every movement, an echo of the dancer she once was. Her voice, soft and elegant, filled the dining hall. "Amara, dear," she said, "would you mind playing something for me?" Amara froze. "Ma'am?" "On the record player, of course." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Leonard has locked that dreadful piano again." Amara forced a small laugh of relief. "Yes, ma'am." As she placed a record on the turntable, she noticed Evelyn studying her. "You play, don't you?" the old woman asked. Amara hesitated. "Just a little." Evelyn's eyes twinkled. "A house like this forgets what real music sounds like. Don't let my son silence you, too." Before Amara could respond, footsteps echoed. Leonard's, sharp and steady. He entered without announcement, perfectly pressed suit, a storm still hiding behind calm eyes. "Mother," he said curtly, "you shouldn't be up this early." Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. "You shouldn't treat your staff like prisoners." Leonard shot Amara a glance. "You may go." Amara bowed slightly and left, but her pulse was quick. That tension, mother and son, it wasn't new. It was old, worn, and heavy with something unspoken. Outside the dining hall, Mr. Hale was polishing silver trays. When Amara passed, he whispered without looking up, "Best to keep quiet today." She paused. "Did I do something wrong?" The old man sighed. "You drew attention, that's all. In this house, attention is rarely a gift." Before she could ask more, a door shut somewhere down the corridor. By noon, Amara was dusting the upstairs library when she heard raised voices. Leonard again. Sharp. Cutting. Then Evelyn's softer reply. Curiosity tugged stronger than caution. She moved quietly closer, ears straining. "You brought her here." Leonard's voice snapped. "Don't deny it." "I brought her because she belongs here," Evelyn said firmly. "Belongs? In my house?" "In our house, Leonard. And you know why?" There was a pause. Then Leonard's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "You don't understand what you've done." A glass shattered. Silence. Amara stepped back, heart hammering. "They're talking about me. But why would Evelyn say she belongs here?" Later, while cleaning the parlor, Amara noticed a young delivery boy struggling with a heavy box at the front door. She rushed to help. "Careful," she said, taking one side. "You'll throw your back out," the boy grinned. "Thanks. It's for Mr. Voss. Sheet music, I think." He handed her the clipboard. On it, scrawled in bold ink, "Recipient, A.D. Voss Foundation Archive." Her breath caught. Those initials again. A.D. "Do you know what that means?" she asked quietly. The boy shrugged. "No idea, just told to drop it off." She signed the paper, her hand trembling slightly. When he left, she opened the top of the box. Inside, old music sheets, neatly bound, some yellowed with age. On one, faded handwriting read, "Sonata for A.D. her initials." Again. She didn't notice Leonard until his voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Put that down." She spun around. He stood in the doorway, eyes dark, unreadable. I was just... You were snooping." He stepped closer. "What did I tell you about curiosity? I didn't mean enough." His tone softened unexpectedly. "This isn't for you." Amara looked up at him. "But it is, isn't it? Those are my initials." Something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe fear. "Go back to your work, Amara. I deserve to know why you keep looking at me like I'm some ghost." He turned away. "You don't deserve the danger that comes with the truth." Her voice trembled. Then at least tell me what I did wrong. He paused at the door. You reminded me of someone I lost. And he left. That evening, while dusting the hall portraits, Amara found herself staring at one painting. A young girl at a piano, eyes downcast, hands poised mid-note. The resemblance was uncanny. If not for the Victorian clothing, it could have been her. Beautiful, isn't it? A soft voice said behind her. She turned. It was Evelyn again, her cane tapping softly against the marble. Who is she? Amara asked. Evelyn smiled faintly. Someone who played when the world told her not to. Amara swallowed. Was she family? In a way, the old woman said. Leonard's late wife painted it. Before she passed, Amara blinked. She painted this girl? Evelyn nodded, and said she'd seen her before. In a dream. As night fell, Amara carried linens to the guest rooms. Passing Leonard's study, she noticed light seeping under the door. A low murmur drifted out, his voice tense on the phone. She played it, Hale, he was saying. Beethoven, perfect tempo. Same as before. Pause. No, she doesn't know. And she can't know. If they find out she's here... Amara's grip on the linens tightened. They? Who's they? She took a step back, careful not to make a sound, and bumped into the doorframe. The thud was soft, but enough. Silence from inside. The door opened sharply. Leonard stood there, phone still in hand. His gaze locked on her. Listening, were you? He said softly. Her voice barely worked. No, sir, I was just passing, he exhaled, running a hand through his hair. You really don't know when to stop, do you? I'm not trying to cause trouble. His eyes softened just a fraction. Trouble doesn't always mean wrong, Amara. Sometimes it means right. Too early. Before she could ask what he meant, he shut the door again. She returned to her quarters, mind racing. Every clue seemed to point backward, toward her past, toward a life she couldn't remember. The photograph, the initials, the locked piano, and now the way Leonard looked at her, like a man seeing a ghost he once failed to save. Exhausted, she sat on the edge of her bed and pulled the photo from her pocket. Turning it over, she noticed faint handwriting on the back she hadn't seen before, faded almost to invisibility. Find her before they do. E.V., her breath hitched. E.V. Evelyn Voss. The world seemed to tilt for a moment. A knock sounded softly at her door. She hid the photo instinctively. It was the gardener, the same quiet man who had once warned her. His eyes darted nervously down the hall. You need to be careful, he whispered. They know you've started asking questions. Who's they? He hesitated, voice trembling. The ones who made you forget. Then he turned and disappeared into the dark corridor before she could speak. Amara sat frozen, the words echoing in her head. The ones who made you forget. And for the first time, she realized she didn't actually remember anything before age 12. Amara finds something personal from her past in the wrong place. Curiosity is the first spark of rebellion. And rebellion is what powerful men fear most. Amara didn't sleep that night. The gardener's words replayed in her head. They made you forget. Each syllable echoed like footsteps down an empty hall. Forget what? Who were they? Her memories before 12 were fragments, flashes of light, the smell of polished wood, a woman's soft humming. Then darkness. She had always assumed the orphanage records were true. Fire, relocation, adoption gone wrong. But what if they weren't? When morning came, she looked out over the Voss estate. acres of sculpted gardens and silent fountains, and felt something shift inside her. She wasn't just cleaning someone else's mansion anymore. She was walking through her own unsolved mystery. Downstairs, the staff whispered over breakfast. "Did you hear?" one maid said. "He fired the gardener last night." "What for?" another asked. "Mr. Hale said he overstepped." Whatever that means, Amara froze mid-step. Overstepped. That could only mean the warning. She hid her shock, poured herself tea, and stayed quiet. Later that day, Leonard Voss arrived home early, which never happened. His car crunched up the gravel drive, a black mirror sliding through sunlight. He spoke to no one, barely nodded at Hale, and disappeared into his office. But Amara noticed something odd. Two men she'd never seen before entered with him, dressed too plainly to be friends, too confident to be employees. They carried thin black cases and murmured in low tones. She asked another maid who they were. The woman shrugged nervously. "Consultants, I think, for his late wife's foundation." Amara knew a lie when she heard one. By mid-afternoon, she was in the West Hall, dusting portraits, when Evelyn appeared again, leaning on her cane, eyes sharper than ever. "My son's worried about you," she said quietly. "About me?" Evelyn nodded. "You've stirred up old ghosts, Amara." Amara hesitated. "Mrs. Voss, what did you mean when you told him I belong here?" The old woman looked out the window, her reflection fractured by sunlight. "Because I saw you years ago, in a hospital. You were just a child. You played a melody I'd never heard before, and yet it felt like I'd known it all my life." Amara's breath caught. "You met me before?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Your mind was extraordinary. You could hear a song once and play it perfectly. The doctors called it hyperthymesia. Perfect recall. My husband called it dangerous." "Dangerous?" "Because people would want to use you." And they did. Before Amara could ask more, Leonard's voice boomed from downstairs. "Mother! Where are you?" Evelyn's expression hardened. "He's coming. Listen carefully. If you want to know who you are, follow the lies, not the truths." Then she turned away as Leonard appeared at the doorway, his tone suddenly polite. "Amara, my mother's tired. Please see her to her room." Amara obeyed, but her mind raced. Follow the lies, not the truths. Hours later, while cleaning the study, she noticed Leonard's desk drawer slightly ajar. Inside were neatly stacked files, each labeled with a single letter, A, B, C. Her fingers hesitated over the A. She opened it. Inside were records, photos, medical scans, adoption papers. Her name at the top, but the birth date was wrong, and the orphanage listed wasn't the one she grew up in. Her heart pounded. Before she could process it, a reflection moved in the glass. Someone was behind her. Curiosity again? She spun around. One of the plain-suited men from earlier stood in the doorway. Late 40s, clean-shaven, smile too polite. "Just doing my duties," Amara said. "Of course." He walked closer. "Leonard says you're very talented. Perfect memory, perfect pitch. That true?" She hesitated. "I just remember music," he chuckled softly. "Music, numbers, faces, doesn't matter. That kind of mind is rare. You should be careful who knows," she frowned. "Who are you?" "Let's say I work for people who appreciate talent." He leaned closer. "If you ever want to leave this place, find me." He slipped a card onto the desk and left before she could respond. The card was blank. just a black symbol pressed into its surface, a treble clef entwined with an infinity sign. That night, Leonard confronted her again. He stood in the kitchen doorway, expression hard to read. "You went through my desk," Amara froze. "I was just cleaning. Don't lie to me." His tone wasn't angry. It was weary. "You found the files." "I found my file," she shot back. "And it says I wasn't born where I thought I was." "Why?" Leonard's silence was answer enough. Finally he said, "Because your memory isn't a gift. It's a curse someone tried to erase." Her pulse quickened. "Who?" "People who wanted to own what you can do. My father among them." Amara's breath caught. "Your father? The late Mr. Voss?" Leonard nodded grimly. "He funded experiments through a foundation, supposedly for gifted children. But it wasn't about helping them. It was about control. You were one of them." Her knees nearly buckled. "That can't be true." "I wish it weren't." He looked at her, guilt flickering in his eyes. "You were taken when the program collapsed. My mother tried to find you before anyone else did. When we hired you, I didn't realize who you were until last night." She felt dizzy, the room spinning. "So what happens now?" He hesitated. "Now, you stop asking questions." "Please, Amara. There are still people who would pay dearly to reclaim you." She met his eyes, fierce, trembling. "Then I want to know everything they took from me." His voice broke. "If you keep digging, people will get hurt." The following morning, Amara noticed something odd outside her window. A car parked across the street. Same black sedan as the day before. Same two silhouettes inside. When she went outside with the trash, the car drove away slowly, watching her. Mr. Hale appeared beside her. "Best to keep inside, Miss Amara." She turned sharply. "You knew too, didn't you?" He didn't deny it. "Not my place to tell. My duty was to protect. Protect me, or protect them." His expression didn't change, but his eyes said enough. By afternoon, she decided to act. If her life was a puzzle, she was done waiting for permission to solve it. She crept into the library, where Evelyn had mentioned the hospital, and searched through old records stored in wooden cabinets. Dusty folders, brittle papers, forgotten names. Then she found it. Patient AD. Project Mnemosyne. Inside. Test results. Brain scans. Notes from Dr. E. Voss. Her fingers shook. Evelyn's initials again. But she wasn't just the billionaire's mother. She'd been one of the scientists. A sound behind her made her jump. Footsteps. Fast. She stuffed the file into her apron and ducked behind a curtain. The door opened. Leonard and one of the suited men entered. "She's asking questions again," the man said. "If she remembers more," Leonard cut him off. "She won't. I'll make sure of it." The man smirked. "Don't get sentimental, Voss. You know what she is." Leonard's voice dropped low. "She's not a thing." They left. Amara waited until silence returned, then pulled out the file. The last page stopped her heart cold. Memory erasure attempt incomplete. Subject may recover in fragments. Recommend containment under observation. In the corner, a date. October 11th, 2008. That was the day she'd been found at the orphanage. Tears welled in her eyes. Every kind word, every rule, every locked door, it all made sense now. They hadn't hired her. They'd brought her back. As she stumbled from the library, one thought pulsed like a drumbeat. If Leonard Voss is trying to protect me, who is he protecting me from? She didn't see the shadow move at the end of the hall, didn't hear the quiet click of a camera shutter. Somewhere, someone was already watching. A mysterious stranger warns her to stop looking, or people will get hurt. Once you know the truth exists, ignorance becomes impossible. The morning after she found the file, Amara woke to the hum of security drones outside her window. They moved like insects, small, silent, scanning the grounds with mechanical precision. She hadn't seen them before. Downstairs, the household buzzed with tension. Extra guards in black suits patrolled the hall. Even the maids whispered less and walked faster. Something had changed overnight. When she entered the kitchen, Mr. Hale met her with a careful smile that didn't reach his eyes. "New security measures," he murmured. "Mr. Voss has had threats." "Against him?" Amara asked. He hesitated. "Against the house." She could tell he wanted to say more, but Leonard appeared in the doorway. Flawless suit, shadowed expression. "Amara," he said quietly, "come to my study after breakfast." She nodded, pretending calm, but her heart thudded with dread. In the study, sunlight sliced through the blinds like bars. Leonard stood at the window, back to her. "I know you went into the library." She said nothing. "You found the file." Still, silence. He turned, eyes tired. "I was going to tell you, but not like this. Not before I could make you safe." Amara's voice was steady. "You've been lying to me since the day I walked in this house." He didn't deny it. "Because the truth could get you killed." She crossed her arms. "Then why keep me here?" "Because if you left, they'd find you within days." "Who are they?" He hesitated. "The same people who erased you. My father's investors. The foundation didn't die when he did. They rebuilt it under another name." "The symbol on the card," she whispered. "The treble clef with the infinity loop." He looked startled. "Where did you see that?" "One of your consultants gave it to me." Leonard's jaw clenched. "Then you're already on their list." He pulled a folder from his drawer and placed it on the desk between them. Inside were recent photographs, grainy surveillance images of her, leaving the bus stop, carrying groceries, laughing with the cook. "They've been tracking you for weeks," he said. "That's why I brought in new security." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the photos. "So what now? I hide forever?" "You start over," he said softly. "I can move you. New name, new place. No." She straightened. "I'm done running from a past I don't remember." He met her gaze for a long moment, then sighed. "Then we do it together." "But you listen to me, Amara. Every question you ask from here on will cost something." She nodded. "Then I'll pay the price." That afternoon, Evelyn requested to see her. The old woman's health seemed to have worsened, hands trembling, voice thinner. "Leonard is trying to fix what he can't undo," she murmured. "He carries too much guilt for his father's sins." "Why did you work on that project?" Amara asked. Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Because I believed memory was a gift. I wanted to help children remember beauty, not pain." "But your mind, it remembers everything, even what should have faded. That frightened them." "Did you help them erase me?" Evelyn shook her head slowly. "No, I tried to stop it. But by the time I found you again, you'd forgotten. And I thought it was mercy." Amara swallowed hard. "Then why not tell me?" "Because truth without safety is cruelty." A knock interrupted them. Mr. Hale entered. "Mrs. Voss, your medication." As he set the glass down, his hand brushed the table, and for a brief second, Amara saw something glinting beneath his sleeve, a small metal band engraved with the treble clef symbol. Their eyes met. He saw that she'd noticed. His expression didn't change, but his voice carried an unspoken warning. "Not now." That night, unable to rest, Amara crept back to the study. Leonard's folder of photographs still lay open. She turned over one picture, the most recent, and froze. In the reflection of the window behind her own image stood Mr. Hale. The timestamp was from yesterday. Her breath caught. Suddenly, a voice behind her. "You shouldn't be here, Miss Amara." She spun. Hale stood in the doorway, expression calm, eyes unreadable. "You've been watching me," she said. "I've been protecting you," he replied. "But protection has its methods." "Working for the Foundation?" she demanded. He sighed. "It's not that simple. The Foundation fractured after the old man died. Some of us wanted to keep you hidden. Others wanted to finish what was started. And which are you?" He looked almost sad, the kind that knows too much to pick sides. Before she could press further, a loud crack echoed from outside, a gunshot muffled by distance. Hale's face blanched. "Downstairs, now!" They ran to the foyer. The glass doors were shattered, wind whipping through. One of the guards lay bleeding on the marble. Leonard appeared moments later, gun drawn. "Get Mother to the panic room," he barked. Amara's mind spun. Panic room? Guns? This wasn't protection. It was war. Through the chaos, she caught sight of movement in the garden. Two silhouettes disappearing into the night. "They came for her," Hale said. "Not for you. Why her?" Amara cried. Leonard's expression darkened. "Because she's the last one who remembers how they built you." Half an hour later, the estate was locked down. Police lights flashed beyond the gates, though Leonard's connections kept the media away. In his study, he poured himself a drink, hands shaking slightly. "They're getting bolder," he muttered. "They must know you're remembering." Amara stood across from him. "Then tell me everything before they do." He stared into his glass. "My father called it Project Mnemosyne. He believed certain minds could store information like hard drives. Music, numbers, images, all encoded in neural patterns. You were the first success." "I'm not an experiment," she whispered. "No. You're proof that humanity's memory is larger than we think." Her voice trembled. "Did you ever believe in it?" "I believed in you," he said quietly, "until I realized belief doesn't stop monsters." Their eyes met, pain against pain. The next morning, Leonard announced that staff would be rotated for safety. Several servants were dismissed, their departures too sudden to question. When Amara checked her quarters, her things were already packed. A single envelope lay on the bed, sealed with the Voss crest. Inside, a letter of termination and a plane ticket under a new name. She stormed into Leonard's office. "You're sending me away? It's the only way you'll live," he said. "You promised to help me find the truth. I'm keeping that promise by keeping you alive. I'm not leaving." He slammed his hand on the desk. "You think this is a game? The moment you walked into this house, every person here became a target. Hale's men can only hold them off so long." Her anger cracked into sorrow. "Then let me fight for myself." Leonard's voice dropped. "You don't understand what they'll do to you if they catch you. You forget for a reason." She stepped closer. "Maybe I deserve to remember." For a long time he said nothing. Then, quietly, "If you stay, you do it my way. No secrets between us," she nodded. "Deal." That night, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her. Every window reflected a watcher. While checking the locks, she noticed a small red light blinking above her door frame. Barely visible, but there, a hidden camera. She climbed onto the chair, heart hammering, and pulled it down. The tiny lens still glowed. From somewhere, down the hall came the faint click of another turning toward her. Her throat went dry. She wasn't just being protected. She was being watched, and not just by them, by Leonard, by Hale, maybe by both. As thunder rolled outside, she whispered to the empty room, "If they think they own my memories, they're wrong." But even as she said it, another realization struck. Every wall might already be listening. She glanced at the piano room door, still locked, and heard faint music drifting from behind. It Beethoven, played perfectly. Only she hadn't touched the keys, Amara discovers. She's under surveillance. She's being watched. Sometimes the truth looks like a key, until the lock itself betrays you. The next morning, the mansion seemed quiet. Too quiet. Even the security guards moved with a tentative hesitancy, as if aware of some unseen tension. Amara didn't sleep well. Her dreams were haunted by fragments of music, flashes of her past, and the vague, threatening eyes of unseen figures. But she felt a strange resolve. If they thought I could be intimidated, they were wrong. She spent the morning in the music room, still locked, still off limits, but she circled it, fingers brushing the cold brass handle. Heart pounding, the piano was silent, but the room itself seemed to hum with history, memory, and the power of unspoken melodies. It wasn't long before she discovered something new. While dusting the library shelves, she stumbled across a small stack of letters, hidden behind a row of thick encyclopedias. Carefully, she pulled them out. They were addressed to Leonard Voss, all postmarked from years ago, written in a hurried scrawl by someone she didn't recognize. The first line of the top letter made her pulse quicken. She's the one. Do not let them find her. Trust no one. Protect her at all costs. Her hands shook. These letters weren't instructions. They were warnings. And they were written to Leonard. The letters hinted at a past she didn't fully remember, but promised that, somewhere in them, was the key to understanding who she really was. By afternoon, she confronted Leonard. "Why didn't you tell me about these?" she demanded, holding the letters out. He leaned against his desk, expression guarded. "Because you weren't ready." "Ready?" she repeated, voice sharp. "I've been ready since I found the file. I deserve the truth." Leonard studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine, I'll show you what you need to see, but you have to trust me completely." Amara nodded, her heart thudding with a mix of hope and suspicion. He led her to the private archives, a room she hadn't been allowed into before. Inside were folders, photos, recordings, and musical scores spanning years. "This is everything," he said. "All the research, all the records, all the precautions we took to keep you safe." She scanned the documents, the handwriting, the sketches of brain patterns, the notes about memory tests. Each piece confirmed what she'd feared and hoped simultaneously. She was extraordinary, her mind a rare instrument of pure recall. And yet she had been hidden all these years for her own protection. For the first time, she believed she was finally close to understanding her past. Her heart swelled with a sense of victory. Finally, she had proof, evidence, and explanations. This is it," she whispered. "I understand now. I'm not crazy. I'm not imagining any of this." Leonard gave her a small, almost wistful smile. "Yes, you're real. And powerful." For a moment, she felt a sense of triumph she hadn't known in years. She thought she had finally beaten the uncertainty, the fear, the mystery. It was intoxicating, but the victory was short-lived. That evening, as she left the archives, she realized the mansion was unusually silent. Too quiet. The usual sounds of servants bustling, machines whirring, or distant music were absent. A cold dread gripped her. Something wasn't right. She turned a corner and froze. There, in the main hallway, Leonard's mother Evelyn stood, her face pale, eyes wide. Behind her, Mr. Hale's posture was rigid, almost stiff with tension. "They know you've seen the archives," Evelyn whispered, voice trembling. "They've already started moving." Amara felt the air leave her lungs. "Who? Who's moving?" Before Evelyn could answer, Leonard appeared from the shadows, furious. "You shouldn't have looked at the files," he snapped. "I trusted you," she yelled. He ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand. Reading them makes you visible. It's not safe here. Not for you." Amara's stomach twisted. "Visible to who? To them?" "Yes, the Foundation," Leonard said. "They've been dormant, but they have agents everywhere. Every step you take now, every moment you exist, you're being tracked." Amara's sense of triumph shattered. The victory of discovering the archive had only made her more vulnerable, and then came the public humiliation. One of Leonard's business associates, an associate she had assumed was a friend of the family, stormed into the study, flanked by two suited men, waving papers. "This girl has been meddling in things beyond her station," the man barked. "Leonard, do you realize what this could mean? Corporate leaks, exposure, liability? She must be disciplined." Leonard tried to intervene, but the man wouldn't listen. Amara was called out in front of the staff and told she had violated the mansion's rules, accessed private files, and endangered everyone. Her cheeks burned. Every servant, every guest, even some of the guards stared at her. And then, the final blow. Her only ally among the household, the cook, who had quietly helped her in minor ways, was reassigned suddenly. Without explanation, Amara stood frozen, grasping for words as Leonard's associate stormed out, leaving her shamed, exposed, and isolated. For the first time, she felt utterly powerless. Later, in the safety of her quarters, she unfolded the letters from the archive again. Each one, once a promise of clarity and safety, now felt like a warning she had ignored. Her hands shook as she read the same line from the top letter. "Do not let them find her. Trust no one. Protect her at all costs." She realized the cruel truth. She had interpreted these letters as guidance, a path to understanding, but the letters were also a chain, a set of rules meant to protect her by limiting her actions. By trying to claim victory, she had walked straight into the trap. Even Leonard, she realized, hadn't anticipated the speed or ruthlessness of those watching. He had underestimated the consequences of her curiosity. Amara's despair transformed into determination. She paced the room, heart racing. She had learned something crucial. Knowledge was dangerous, but inaction would be deadly. Her mind, trained to remember every detail, catalogued the events, the hidden archives, the letters, the public shaming, the disappearance of her ally, the threats she had begun to notice outside the mansion. If she was to survive, she had to move carefully, even while armed with more knowledge than anyone anticipated. "False victory," she whispered. "It's just another puzzle." She closed the letters and carefully placed them back in her apron pocket. Then she approached the window and looked out over the estate. The night was calm, almost too calm. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the gardens. Somewhere in the darkness, someone watched. Always. Amara's fingers brushed the edge of the piano room door, still locked, still forbidden. Her lips pressed together. She had survived humiliation, isolation, and lies. She had uncovered a fragment of truth. But the game had just begun. And she knew now. The path forward would be far more treacherous than any key, file, or melody could prepare her for. Protagonist is publicly shamed and loses her only ally. Sometimes the darkest hour is not the end, it is the mirror showing you who you really are. Amara sat alone in her quarters. The evening light slanted across the room, turning the walls a muted orange, but she barely noticed the warmth. Her hands trembled as she clutched the photograph she had discovered months ago. The one that had started everything. The world she thought she understood had fractured. She had trusted Leonard, only to be publicly humiliated. She had believed the archive would reveal clarity, only to discover it had made her vulnerable. Her only ally in the mansion, the cook, who had quietly helped her navigate the labyrinth of rules and secrets, was gone, reassigned without warning, and now the night pressed in, thick with the knowledge that someone, somewhere, was watching her every move. Amara hugged her knees. She felt powerless, trapped, and utterly alone. Memories flickered in her mind like broken film. The orphanage, where she had hummed melodies on tin plates while the nuns scolded her. The little hospital bed, where Evelyn claimed she had first seen her extraordinary memory. The locked piano, the stolen letters, the photograph hidden under the bench. Each memory was a thread, but together they formed a tapestry she didn't recognize. She had been hidden, erased, reshaped, always for someone else's purposes. And yet, the music lingered in her mind. She pressed her fingertips to the air and traced the imaginary keys, playing the Moonlight Sonata. Notes she had once memorized came back to her effortlessly. Her talent was a lifeline, but even that gift felt like a chain, binding her to a past she had never chosen. Hours later, she sat in the library, going through the letters again. Her eyes scanned over the warnings, the instructions, the pleas. Evelyn's handwriting danced across the pages. Trust no one. Protect her at all costs. It was clear now. The protection had limits. Leonard's father's foundation had fractured. Some agents were gone, some were still active, and Amara had unknowingly drawn their attention. Her hands clenched into fists. She realized she could no longer rely solely on others. Not Leonard, not Hale, not Evelyn. She had to act, but the weight of the truth hit her harder than any fear. She didn't even know who she truly was. Every clue she had uncovered led to fragments, not answers. The archives revealed her exceptional memory, but erased the context of her childhood. The photograph, the letters, the hidden music room, they pointed to protection and danger, love and manipulation, but not her own choices. Amara felt the emptiness of it, the hollow ache of losing control over her own life. For the first time, she allowed herself to cry. As tears streaked her cheeks, she noticed a faint glimmer beneath a bookshelf, a small envelope, folded carefully and left as if by accident. She picked it up. Inside, a key. No note, no explanation, just a small, polished brass key. Her pulse quickened. This could be anything: a literal door, a symbolic lock, or a path to the truth she craved. She traced the engraving on the key, a treble clef intertwined with an infinity symbol. Her breath caught. The same symbol as the black card, the same one Hale had tried to warn her about. It was not a coincidence. That night, as she held the key, memories came back in flashes, images she hadn't seen in years. A little girl, no more than 8, practicing piano, while her mother hummed beside her. A hospital room, sunlight on a bed. A woman's hand guiding hers across invisible keys. A man with cold eyes, watching, judging, controlling. The fragments were incomplete, but together they painted a picture. She had always been exceptional, always a target, always being manipulated by forces far beyond her understanding. And now, the puzzle was in her hands. A soft knock startled her. It was Hale. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "I saw the light," he said softly. "You're awake." Amara held the key tightly. "Hale, how do I even begin to find out the rest?" He hesitated. "There's one piece you've overlooked, but it's dangerous." "I'm ready," she said firmly. "You should rest first," he replied, "because when you step into this, there's no turning back. You'll be walking into the center of a storm." Amara shook her head. "I've been in storms before. I survived them." Hale studied her. "Yes, but this isn't like before. This is different. People have died over what you're about to uncover." Her hands didn't tremble. She raised the key. "Then I'll make sure I don't become one of them." Before leaving, Hale handed her a small, worn notebook. "Keep this with you," he said. "It belonged to someone who understood what they were doing. It has everything you've forgotten, or haven't yet realized." Amara opened the notebook. Inside were scribbled melodies, notes, observations, and cryptic clues, fragments that only someone with her perfect memory could reconstruct. It wasn't a map, not exactly, but it was enough. Hours passed. The mansion settled into silence. Leonard had left for an urgent meeting. Evelyn had retired to her suite. Amara sat alone, tracing the notebook and key in her hands, feeling the weight of destiny pressing down. Her reflection caught in the window. She saw a girl who had been mocked, humiliated, and threatened. Yet she also saw something else: strength. She had lost her allies, her safety, her innocence. But she had not lost herself. The darkest hour was behind her, but the horizon ahead was stormy, unknown, and dangerous. One last glance at the piano room revealed its locked door, a symbol of the truth she still needed to uncover. Her fingers traced the brass key again. "This is it," she thought. "I either find the truth, or it finds me first." Outside, a shadow moved across the garden. A faint click echoed in the halls. Someone was still watching, but Amara no longer feared it, because for the first time in her life, she was ready to fight, not for survival alone, but for the truth she had been denied. Amara realizes she's been looking at everything wrong. The truth is the opposite of what she believed. The walls we build to hide ourselves crumble faster than the lies we tell to keep others blind. The mansion was unusually still that morning, almost eerily so. Amara moved through the corridors with quiet purpose, clutching the brass key and the worn notebook Hale had given her. Each step echoed like a drumbeat of anticipation. She had survived humiliation, fear, and isolation. She had discovered fragments of the past, but the storm of questions still raged inside her. Now it was time to confront it. Her first stop, the locked piano room. The key fit perfectly. The lock clicked, and the door swung open. Inside, the room smelled of polished wood and old leather. Dust motes floated in shafts of sunlight, and the grand piano sat center stage, gleaming like a silent sentinel. She approached cautiously, her fingers hovering over the keys. Without thinking, she pressed a note. The sound resonated through the room, filling every corner. And then the memory struck, like lightning. She had played this exact melody as a child. Every note, every pause, every soft accent was imprinted in her mind. It was more than music. It was a map. Hours passed as she explored the room, cross-referencing melodies in the notebook. The patterns revealed something astonishing. Encoded within the music were sequences of numbers and letters, a hidden language she had subconsciously memorized as a child. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Leonard's father hadn't just been obsessed with memory. He had been hiding information within her own mind, and she had unknowingly carried it for years. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hall. She spun. Leonard stood in the doorway, eyes wide. "Amara, what have you done?" "I found it," she said, voice steady. "Everything. All the pieces I was missing. They were here all along. The melodies. They're a cipher." He swallowed hard. "You weren't supposed to figure that out yet. Why not?" "Because some truths," he said, voice low, "cannot survive exposure. They will destroy more than you can imagine." Amara met his gaze. "I don't care. I want to know." For the first time, Leonard's facade cracked. The man who had always been composed, distant, and untouchable now looked uncertain, even vulnerable. "You really want the truth?" he whispered. "Yes," she said firmly. It was then that Hale entered, face grim. "They're moving," he warned. "The agents know you're decoding the cipher." Leonard's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to act fast. But you must trust me completely." Amara nodded. She didn't fully understand what he meant, but she had learned the hard way that survival depended on trust, even when it was fragile. The three of them worked in silence, piecing together the musical cipher. Every note corresponded to a date, every chord to a name, and every sequence to a location. Amara's mind absorbed it all effortlessly. And then, finally, the breakthrough. A single, horrifying realization. The people she had been warned about, the ones who erased her memories, were closer than she had ever imagined. Not hidden across the globe, not in some distant lab, they were in the very mansion, in plain sight. The agents weren't only outsiders. Some had been living under the guise of servants, consultants, and even friends. And worse, one of them had been feeding Leonard information all along. Amara felt her stomach twist. The lines between ally and enemy blurred. She glanced at Hale. "Who?" He shook his head. "I don't know yet, but one of them has been sabotaging your safety, right under Leonard's nose." Her mind raced. She thought of the black card, the subtle glances, the moments of tension that had never made sense before. Every detail now pointed to betrayal. And then Leonard said the words that froze her blood. "It's someone you trust." Hours turned into a tense evening. The mansion seemed alive with shadows, each room a potential trap. Amara moved cautiously, notebook in hand, retracing the musical clues. Finally, a name emerged from the cipher. Someone she had never suspected. A bystander who had appeared harmless, almost invisible throughout her time at the mansion. Someone who had been watching her, guiding her, manipulating her. All while pretending to be neutral, Amara confronted the person quietly in the music room. The confrontation was silent at first. Only their eyes spoke. Recognition, fear, and then relief. "You knew," she whispered. The person nodded, their face pale. "I've known since the beginning. I tried to warn you, but I couldn't risk revealing myself." "You knew? All this time?" "Yes," they admitted. "I've been protecting the truth while keeping you alive. But the time has come. The real villain is not who you think." Amara's heart raced. "Then who is it?" The bystander hesitated, then spoke the words that shattered her assumptions. "Leonard is not the enemy. Not even close. It's someone else. Someone closer than either of you realized. Someone who has been shaping events from the shadows." Her breath caught. The lines of trust, loyalty, and betrayal blurred completely. That night, Amara lay in her quarters, replaying every encounter, every glance, every warning she had received. It was all connected, and yet the true enemy had remained invisible. But for the first time, she felt hope. Not because she had answers, but because she finally knew where to look. The web had tightened around her, yes, but now she had the map to untangle it. Her memory, her music, her courage, they were no longer just tools of survival. They were weapons, and the unmasking had begun. Outside, the mansion was quiet, too quiet. A shadow moved along the periphery, observing, watching, waiting. Amara glanced at the piano, then the notebook. Her eyes hardened. "I know where you are," she whispered, "and I know who you are." The night stretched ahead, full of danger, revelation, and shifting loyalties. And for the first time, Amara was no longer just a pawn in someone else's game. She was a player. A bystander reveals they've known the truth all along and names the real villain. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that have been staring at us all along. The ballroom was filled with the soft glow of chandeliers, the polished floor reflecting every movement like a mirror. Leonard had insisted on a formal gathering, a controlled environment to reveal the truth. Staff, consultants, and even a few family friends were present, oblivious to what was about to unfold. Mara's heart pounded. She had rehearsed this moment endlessly in her mind, tracing the paths laid out in the musical cipher, memorizing every clue in the notebook. Tonight, the fragments would finally converge. Leonard stepped forward, voice calm but heavy with anticipation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight we uncover the truth behind what happened." Murmurs rippled through the room, confusion and curiosity blending into a tense hush. Amara stepped forward, clutching the notebook and key. Every eye turned toward her, some skeptical, some genuinely concerned. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "The story you've been told," she said, "is not complete. The files, the archives, the music, they all point to one fact. I was hidden, erased, and protected for a reason. Not because I did something wrong, but because I am something extraordinary." The room stiffened. Leonard's mother, Evelyn, sat upright, expression taut. Leonard's gaze never left her. I have memories that were taken from me. Music, faces, numbers, melodies. I remember them all because someone believed I was special. And that belief threatened others. A hush fell, Amara continued. Voice strong, steady. The person orchestrating the danger, the manipulations, the threats, is not Leonard. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The real villain has been hiding in plain sight. Someone manipulating, monitoring, and controlling, all while pretending to be neutral, even loyal. And now, thanks to the musical cipher and the fragments of truth I've uncovered, we know who they are. She turned to the bystander from Chapter 7, who stepped forward bravely. You have been protecting me? Amara asked. Yes, they admitted. But it's time everyone else sees it. The villain is... The words hung in the air. The room was silent. Every guest leaned forward, eyes wide. The head of the Foundation's current board. Leonard's father's successor. The person we all trusted to continue the legacy under the guise of philanthropy. They have been orchestrating the threats, hiding the past, and controlling every movement behind the scenes. Shock, disbelief, whispers and gasps filled the room. The accused stepped forward, calm, collected. Their demeanor icy. You don't understand, they said smoothly. Everything we did was to maintain order, to protect everyone. Amara's eyes narrowed. Protect? You manipulated lives, erased memories, and hunted a child. Leonard stepped beside her, voice quiet but resolute. Amara is right. You hid behind intentions, but actions have consequences. And those consequences are now here. Evidence followed. Amara and the bystander presented files, recordings, and sequences decoded from the musical cipher. Each melody corresponded to dates, names, and secret movements orchestrated by the villain. Every lie, every manipulation, every hidden surveillance device was exposed. The room went silent. Even the loyal staff who had unknowingly complied with orders now saw the truth. Finally, Evelyn spoke, her voice shaking. We tried to protect her. But even our intentions were insufficient against someone who wields control like a weapon. The villain's facade faltered. The ice of arrogance cracked. Fear flashed briefly in their eyes, enough for everyone to see. And then came the emotional revelation. Amara spoke of her childhood, the hospital, the orphanage, the erased memories, every detail she had rediscovered, every melody she had memorized, every piece of herself she had reclaimed. I was hidden, yes, she said, but not forgotten. I was meant to survive, and I have. Not just for myself, but for everyone whose lives have been twisted by these lies. You thought you could erase me, but you underestimated the strength of memory, courage, and music combined. Tears welled in Leonard's eyes. Amara, you've done what I never could. You've uncovered the truth and faced it head-on. The crowd erupted with emotion, shock, relief, and a collective exhale of recognition. Even the villain, cornered, tried to salvage dignity. I only acted to protect the Foundation's interests. Amara's voice cut through. Your so-called protection destroyed lives. And for what? Power? Control? The illusion of legacy? No one spoke. The truth was too heavy, too visible. But the revelations didn't end there. In the final moments, the bystander disclosed a hidden detail, one last secret, buried so deeply it changed the understanding of everything. The Foundation wasn't just about memory or control. The experiments, the surveillance, the threats, they were all to protect another child. Not Amara, She was the key. But the real legacy, the true inheritance of this work, was meant for someone else. Someone still at risk. Gasps filled the ballroom again. Amara's mind raced. Someone else? Someone she hadn't considered? Every assumption about her purpose and protection now had a second layer, a hidden motive behind every manipulation. And the real stakes, beyond herself, were clearer than ever. By the end of the night, Leonard, Amara, and the bystander had exposed the villain publicly. Media and authorities were contacted. The Foundation's leadership was in chaos. Staff who had been coerced into compliance were freed from fear. Amara stood in the center of the ballroom, notebook in one hand, brass key in the other. She felt the weight of everything she had survived. The humiliation, the lies, the threats, the isolation. And she realized something profound. Survival wasn't enough. She had reclaimed her identity. The villain, now powerless, was escorted away under security watch. Leonard approached Amara quietly. "You've done more than survive. You've unmasked deception, reclaimed truth, and reminded everyone that courage matters more than control." Amara smiled faintly, exhausted but resolute. "It wasn't just me. I had help, and I finally understand why it mattered. Not just for me, but for the lives intertwined with mine." Evelyn, frail but proud, nodded. "You were always meant to see it. The rest of us could only guide you." The night ended with quiet reflection. Outside, the mansion seemed different, lighter, freer, no longer burdened by shadows. Amara held the brass key and notebook close. She knew the path ahead was not without danger. The hidden child, the unfinished mysteries, the fragments of the past. There were still battles to fight. But for the first time, she could face them with clarity, strength, and the certainty that she would not be silenced. Her eyes traced the empty piano room, sunlight breaking through the blinds. She pressed her fingertips to the keys, letting the music echo through the hall. A melody of victory, truth, and the beginning of something larger than herself. "The truth," she whispered, "is never just what we see. It's what we choose to remember, and what we refuse to let go." Truth reveals an even bigger secret that changes everyone's understanding of the story. When the veil lifts, everyone must decide who they truly are. The mansion felt different the morning after the revelation, like the air itself had changed. Walls no longer hid secrets. Corridors no longer concealed whispers. Every servant, consultant, and family friend knew the truth. Amara moved through the hallways with quiet determination. Her footsteps echoed with purpose, not fear. Yet, despite the clarity she now held, unease lingered. The villain may have been exposed, but the consequences were far from over. Outside, the grounds were filled with the aftermath of chaos. Investigators combed through offices, gathering evidence. The media, carefully controlled by Leonard's team, broadcast the story of the Foundation's corruption and manipulations. Some celebrated the exposure. Others recoiled at the depths of deceit. Amara stood at a window, watching it all unfold. She realized the magnitude of what had happened. Lives had been destroyed, trust had been shattered, and her own journey was far from over. She had uncovered the truth, but truth alone did not heal. Leonard joined her quietly, his expression heavy. "They're questioning everything," he said. "Board members, consultants, even family friends. No one is spared, I know. Amara replied. But it's not enough to expose them. We have to ensure this doesn't happen again. He nodded slowly. And that's why the real reckoning begins. Not just punishment, but reflection, accountability, and rebuilding. First came the personal consequences. Hale, who had guided her through the maze of secrets and threats, finally revealed the extent of the Foundation's manipulations. Every step we took, he said, was meant to protect, but also to control. We all played a part, whether we wanted to or not. Amara listened, absorbing the weight of his confession. And now? She asked. Now, he said, we choose our side. We decide whether to seek vengeance or to restore what's been broken. Her gaze hardened. I don't want vengeance. I want justice and understanding. Everyone deserves a chance to make things right. But no one escapes accountability. The mansion's staff gradually began to speak. Some admitted their complicity in hiding secrets or enforcing rules without questioning them. Some had genuinely tried to protect her without understanding the full scope of danger. And some had actively assisted the villain, whether from fear or ambition. Each confession brought relief, anger, or sorrow. Amara realized something crucial. The reckoning was not just about punishing one person. It was about illuminating the choices everyone had made, and what they were willing to do now to heal. Leonard's mother, Evelyn, remained quietly observant. You understand now why protection can feel like imprisonment, she said softly. You've survived not because no one cared, but because those who did often made the wrong choices in the wrong order. The reckoning isn't just theirs. It's yours too, Amara nodded. I understand. But I'm not burdened by regret. Only responsibility, Evelyn smiled faintly. Good. Responsibility is the heaviest weapon, and the truest measure of strength. The real challenge, however, was the villain's allies, those who remained loyal even after exposure. A few tried to flee, others plotted to reclaim power, and a select few attempted to manipulate public opinion, painting themselves as victims rather than perpetrators. Amara knew they couldn't be allowed to succeed. Working alongside Leonard and Hale, she devised a plan: transparency, documentation, and carefully controlled exposure of every hidden action. They didn't just punish, they prevented future manipulation. Every detail from the musical cipher, every hidden file, and every witness testimony became a tool to restore justice. But even in victory, danger lingered. Late one evening, as Amara reviewed documents, she noticed a discrepancy. A single anomalous file buried deep within the archives. Her pulse quickened. It was evidence that someone still had influence, someone she hadn't yet uncovered. Before she could analyze further, a soft click sounded behind her. She turned, heart pounding. A figure emerged from the shadows. "Amara," the voice whispered. It was a staff member she had trusted, someone who had survived the exposure. But now, standing before her, they held a folder, trembling hands betraying fear and anticipation. "They're not finished," the person said. "The real plan, it's bigger than we thought." Amara's breath caught. She realized that even after unmasking the villain, the web of deception extended further. The reckoning was far from complete. The following days were tense, filled with meetings, confessions, and reconciliations. Some relationships fractured irreparably, some alliances strengthened, bound by shared survival and a commitment to truth. And some, like her bond with Leonard, shifted into unspoken understanding, a quiet acknowledgement that trust, once rebuilt, was fragile but essential. Amara herself found strength in the process. She had faced humiliation, isolation, betrayal, and near-death exposure, and emerged more determined, capable, and aware. The mansion's staff gradually resumed normal duties, now fully informed and integrated into a transparent system of checks and balances. Hale, Leonard, and Amara created protocols to monitor threats, prevent manipulation, and preserve memory without exploitation. And in private, Amara returned to the piano. She played slowly, deliberately, each note a reflection of the storm she had survived. Music, she realized, was more than memory. It was a bridge between the past and the future, between fear and courage, between loss and hope. The final test of the reckoning came unexpectedly. A desperate move from one of the remaining loyalists threatened to undo all they had achieved. A fire alarm, a sudden breach, a silent intruder in the estate's wings. Amara's instincts kicked in. With Hale and Leonard at her side, she acted decisively, using her knowledge of the mansion's secrets, the musical cipher, and every observation she had ever made. They intercepted the threat before any harm could occur. And in that moment, Amara understood fully. The reckoning was ongoing. Not a single day, but every day that followed demanded vigilance, courage, and choice. By nightfall, the mansion was calm again. Amara stood by the piano, looking out over the estate. The stars above mirrored the chaos and clarity of the events she had endured. She spoke softly to herself. Truth is never static. Reckoning is never finished. But as long as we face it with courage, honesty, and responsibility, we endure. Leonard appeared beside her, silent but supportive. "Are we done?" he asked. Amara shook her head. "No, but we've survived it. That's the beginning." Someone makes a desperate move that threatens everything gained. The world doesn't promise perfection, but it offers the chance to rebuild what's been broken. The mansion, once a maze of shadows and secrets, had begun to feel alive again. Sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating polished floors and quiet hallways. The air was lighter, freer, carrying with it the hum of activity, not fear, but purpose. Amara walked through the estate, her footsteps confident. She no longer felt the weight of isolation or deception. She carried the brass key and notebook with her, not as burdens, but as tools, a reminder of her journey and the knowledge she now wielded. Leonard approached, quietly observing her. "It feels different, doesn't it?" Amara smiled faintly. "Yes, but different doesn't mean safe. It means we survived." "That's the first step," he nodded. "And what now?" "I rebuild," she said simply. "Not just the mansion, not just the foundation, but trust, knowledge, the lives that were affected. We make sure it doesn't happen again." In the following weeks, the estate became a hub for transparency and protection. Staff who had been manipulated were empowered with information and responsibilities. Systems of surveillance and secrecy were dismantled or repurposed for safety. Rather than control, the foundation, under new guidance, focused on preservation of memory for education, art, and healing. No longer a tool for manipulation, Amara became a central figure in this transformation. Her talent for memory, her analytical mind, and her courage made her indispensable. But more than that, she became a symbol. Proof that one person, even when isolated and erased, could reclaim truth and reshape the world around them. Even relationships shifted. Leonard, once a distant and controlled presence, became a true partner and ally. not in a romantic sense, but as someone who trusted her judgment and respected her autonomy. Hale, the quiet guide who had protected her through the darkest times, finally relaxed. "You've exceeded every expectation," he said, pride in his voice. "Even mine," Amara nodded. "I didn't do it alone. Everyone who survived, everyone who helped, they're part of this too." Evelyn, frail but smiling, stood at the piano one afternoon. "You've done more than survive," she said softly. "You've healed what we could not. You've restored hope." The piano room, once a symbol of secrets and hidden truths, became a sanctuary Amara played daily, not as a code to decipher, not as a memory test, but as an expression of her restored self. Melodies floated through the estate, carrying a message of resilience and triumph. The keys, once instruments of control, now spoke freedom. Yet the scars of the past remained. The mansion was no longer a place of fear, but the memories of betrayal, manipulation, and danger lingered in quiet corners. Amara accepted them, not as chains, but as reminders of what she had endured. The past had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. One afternoon, as she walked through the gardens, she saw a small figure in the distance, a child, curious and bright-eyed, playing a melody on a portable keyboard. Amara paused, heart swelling. She approached quietly, listening to the notes, recognizing the talent. "Do you like music?" she asked. The child looked up, hesitant, then nodded. Amara smiled. "I can teach you something special, something powerful. Music, memory, and the courage to face the world, no matter what shadows lie ahead." Later that evening, she returned to the piano room alone. She placed the brass key on the desk and opened the notebook one final time. Every melody, every cipher, every lesson learned from her journey stared back at her. She traced her fingers over the notes and whispered softly, "We survive. We remember. And we choose what comes next." Leonard appeared silently at the doorway. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. They shared a look, a silent acknowledgement of battles won, truths uncovered, and lives reshaped. Outside, the stars shone brightly, casting their glow across the mansion and gardens. The night air was calm. No shadows lurked. No whispers threatened. The danger had passed, but the lessons remained. Amara stepped to the balcony, looking out over the estate. She thought of the challenges she had faced: betrayal, humiliation, threats, and the constant uncertainty of memory and truth. And yet, she also thought of what she had gained: clarity, courage, allies, and the power to shape her own destiny. "The world isn't perfect," she whispered, "but it is ours to build, and we will build it with truth, with care, and with courage." The piano played softly in the background, a melody of hope and endurance. Amara leaned on the balcony, reflecting on the story of her life, a tale of erasure, deception, discovery, and triumph. She had been mocked, threatened, and manipulated, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and unbroken. The mansion, once a place of shadows, now reflected light. The past, once a labyrinth of fear, was now a foundation for the future. And Amara, the girl who remembered everything, finally found a sense of peace, earned through struggle, courage, and relentless pursuit of truth. In the end, survival was never enough. To remember, to face the truth, and to rebuild, This was the real victory.